So, it's been a while since I've been here. Lots of new faces. This is going to be a different thing than you might be used to. It's going to be different in a lot of different ways. One is how you experience it. Right? So there's sort of three fundamentally different ways you can experience tonight's experience. One is just for the Java. We're going to talk about approval tests, which is a testing deal, testing jar. It's a better way of writing assertions. It sits underneath JUnit. And is anyone been following the is TDD dead stuff online? A couple people. So DHH, the guy who wrote Ruby, basically, yeah, wrote Rails, not Ruby. But the confusion is understandable. He came out with a talk that basically said, TDD, and then Ken Beck and Martin Fowler and the whole host of the internet sort of said, what? And now they're having these sort of weekly half-hour hangouts. You can see them on YouTube and they're recorded, or you can see them live through Google Hangout. They happen once a week. It's been very interesting. One of the things that's very interesting in terms of today is they talk a lot about the return on investment of TDD and tests first. And a lot of the return on investment has to do with how you write the tests. What we're going to learn today is a way to write tests in a different perspective, in an easier perspective. And so when you invest less, it's easier to get a better return. And so that's one way of experiencing today, just in terms of the Java. Another way of experiencing is from a training perspective. So I'm a trainer. I spend about a third of my time going to companies and training them. Actually, the way I got my Google Glass is Google hired me to create their courseware for Google App Engine. Right, so that was my connection in Google. One of the downsides about corporate training is a bit like physical training, like working out. And a lot of companies sort of say, hey, come on out for a week, let's get ourselves in shape. So I go out and we train for a week, and then you don't see them for like another year or two, and they're like, hey, for some reason our employees are still fat and sluggish. And you're like, oh, that's because you trained for 1 week. Like, that's just not how you build muscle, and it's not how you build skill. If you want to build skill, you need to do a little bit of work over a long period of time. And unfortunately, that doesn't work good when I'm like flying around the country. Like, can't fly you out to New York for an hour every Monday, you know, like, it just doesn't work. So they tend to batch it up. We do that as a society a lot. College is the same sort of thing. Like, let's just work you really hard for 4 to 8 years, and then you're done with learning for the rest of your life. That also doesn't work. That's why the user group works so well, right? Because we're in an industry where learning is constant. And a little bit each month is a really good way to keep your skills sharp, to keep yourself growing. And so one of the things that we find is in companies where they're really performing well, they set aside a significant amount of time to constantly improve, constantly train, to constantly. There's different ways that different companies do it. Google has 20% time. They also have a lot of internal talks that they do, sort of internal user groups for Google people who don't actually want to leave the building. Facebook does a lot of hackathons, right? Like they have a culture of hackathons, right? Places where you can just explore and learn. Again, different companies do it in different ways. But places where you're doing this sort of continual learning is a really important thing. So I'm going to show you a way here to do that. And I'm going to show you a way to do it where you can train a team without knowing anything about what you're going to train. Right? So the exercise that we will do today, I do actually know a lot about it because I wrote it, but I don't have to know anything about it to do what I do today. In fact, when you observe, if you're here to experience how do I train other people on my team using techniques like this, notice how little I'm going to do today. Shockingly little. And I need to know almost nothing to do it. Definitely nothing about the subject matter. So that's the second way. You can do it as I want to go back and help my team continue to learn, or I want to go back and help myself to continually learn. Either way. You can look at it as I don't care about the code, but I do care about the process of learning. And then the third way is I care about the process of teaching. So like Paul said, we do courseware for the kids. We actually use a very similar technique. We have like 5 different things that compose a lesson. One of the things, the last thing, is going to be very similar to what we're about to do. So you can look at it and say, okay, well, I don't really care about training other people, and I don't really care about the code itself, but I create things myself, and I want to make ways to other people, to help other people to understand. And so the technique that we're going to go through today is called Koan, and it's a very interesting way of allowing people to learn without having an instructor present. So any one of those 3 ways, you brought back more. Any one of those 3 things is fine, right? Any way you want to experience it, of course, mix and match to your heart's content. Before we get started in here, I want to point out a couple things about learning that will explain why I'm doing it, right? So for the people who are interested in training other people or creating stuff of your own, there's a couple things in here that are worth paying attention to because people are funny things. And once you understand them a little bit better, it makes a little more sense as to why we're doing stuff. So I have just a couple really quick videos to show you. This comes more from the cognitive science side of the world, but it's worth paying attention to. It'll be helpful if you guys are really quiet during this. So that's my only request. Please. I'm going to show you 3 little videos here. This one, just to get us started. So that's the first one. Your perspective matters, and it matters a lot. I'm going to show you how much it matters with this one.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes?
So, how many passes you guys count?
13, 15.
Did you count? Correct answer is 15.
Show of hands. How many people saw the animal?
Guy in the suit?
Gorilla.
Guy in the suit animal. What was it?
Gorilla.
Passes. But did you see the gorilla?
I did not see the gorilla. Well, I saw something, but I was more focused on.
This video is
Okay, so I want to point out like what a challenge this is for me as a teacher. You would think, like, if I was designing this thing, I said, I want to make sure that I do something obvious. Maybe I should put on a full-size gorilla suit and walk across and thump my chest. Then the students would know that's important. Statistically, half of you won't see that. During this day, there's going to be tons of stuff going on. Think of how much you're going to miss. There's a whole bunch of stuff that will happen right in front of your face. Half of you at any given time are not going to see it. Right? And the more subtle, the more chance it is. And it will depend, again, on your perspective. What are you focused on at the time? Entire other sections will never make it into your consciousness. So half of what I do up here, you will not see. Even though I'm right up here doing it, and it doesn't matter how obvious I make it, half of what I do, you will not see. That is Makes it more of a challenge to do something and have an impact. But it gets worse. Let's take a look at the fa-ba effect.
At any one moment, we are being bombarded by sensory information. Our brains do a remarkable job of making sense of it all. It seems easy enough to separate the sounds we hear from the sights we see. But there is one illusion that reveals this isn't always the case.
Ba, ba, ba.
Have a look at this. What do you hear?
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba.
But look what happens when we change the picture.
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. Ba.
And yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing ba with a B.
Ba, ba. Ba,
It's an illusion known as the McGurk Effect.
ba,
Take another look.
ba,
Concentrate first on the right of the screen.
ba,
Now to the left of the screen.
ba.
The illusion occurs because what you are seeing clashes with what you are hearing.
In the illusion, what we see overrides what we hear. So the mouth movements we see as we look at a face can actually influence what we believe we're hearing. If we close our eyes, we actually hear the sound as it is. If we open our eyes, we actually see how the mouth movements can influence what we're hearing.
Ba, ba, ba.
It's a bizarre effect. Remember, the only sound you're hearing is ba with a B.
Ba, 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 ba.
What's remarkable about this illusion is even knowing how it's done doesn't seem to make a difference.
Ba.
The effect works no matter how much you know about the effect. I've been studying the McGurk effect for 25 years now, and I've been the face in the stimuli. I've seen stimuli thousands of times, but the effect still works on me. I can't help it. The speech brain just takes in that information and doesn't care about what outside.
All right, so the first two videos I kind of showed you that stuff that happens in front of you, you're not going to see. Now I want to say that stuff that doesn't happen in front of you, you will see. So I'm going to do stuff, half of it you're not going to notice, and the other half, it's very likely you might see something that did not happen. Because when you have expectations, and we all have expectations, that's how we survive as people. We get experiences, we remember our experiences, we put them together. Those expectations literally change what you see and hear to make it so that it will fit your expectation. Right? So again, as a teacher, this becomes a large challenge. I'm going to do some things to offset those challenges. One of the things I'm going to do a lot is collecting observations. Because one of the things we see is while an individual is very error-prone, a collective is much better. It's much more likely as a collective you will see stuff. It's much more likely as a collective you'll have similar misconceptions that can get resolved. Does that make sense? So when I'm doing observations, I'm doing it A, to share things that you might have missed, and to clear up misconceptions that might have taken place. Both of those are very valuable. Does that make sense? And that's why all of you guys have got sticky notes and pins in front of you. So in the Agile world, sticky notes and Sharpies are like par for the course. There's actually a conspiracy theory that 3M is behind the whole thing. But because of that, I learned how to use sticky notes a long time ago. And then what I've discovered is anything you learned long enough ago that you forgot that you learned it, you just think is common sense. So for a long time, I thought sticky notes are just common sense. And then people weren't doing them right, and I was like, why aren't they doing them right? And then I saw some of the sticky notes I used to write. And now I know that it wasn't common sense, it was learning. So let's do a really quick review on how to do sticky notes. notes. This is from Michael, a really great guy. I just compiled one of his blog posts into form. Sticky notes. One idea per sticky note. Not 3 ideas on a sticky note. Now, if you have 3 ideas or observations, that's great. Write 3 sticky notes. If you run out of sticky notes, we got more. 1 idea per sticky note. It's the Twitter of sticky notes. 2, 3 words. Now really try not to go past 3 if you can help it. Some people don't even notice that it says or in pen down here, right? We have Sharpies, use the Sharpies, make it easy to read. Cursive isn't going to help anybody. Likewise, capital letters, much easier to read than lowercase, much more consistent from person to person too. Now, individually, none of these things matter too much, but as a whole, notice how much easier it is to read the green side than the orange side. If you remember, we were talking about how humans work, and one of the things about humans is there's a high tendency for flight or fight or flight response. So, when given any type of obstacle or work, a lot of times we think, do we take it on, or can we avoid it? And what you might find yourself doing is not reading the orange side, just sort of glossing over it, zoning out. That's the flight side of your brain saying, it's too much effort over here. So when you see this happen in mass, what happens is a lot of times the stuff just doesn't get read. So very easy sticky note thing. One of the things I've learned from doing these around is, sounds so stupid, but it always happens. The sticky notes have a sticky side. Don't write on that side. All right. Let's move to Koans. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can do this. First of all, I'm going to do a small randori. No, mob. Has anyone heard of mob program? So mob comes from randori. It's a teaching technique. I'm going to do a very small randori. I just need 4 volunteers. So 4 people who are feeling brave. Hands in the air. 1, 2, 3. Cool. All right, can I have you guys come over here? And actually, can I ask you to move so I can just put them in a circle here?
Should we bring our sticky notes or not?
Yeah, bring your sticky notes. So bring 1 chair right here, because 4 guys can have to sit and type.
We all need to sit.
Yeah, you all need to sit. All right.
Wow.
Okay. If you would like to play along in the seats, well, first of all, you can just play along by watching, but if you want to actually pop it up on your computer and play around, there's a couple things. First of all, there are thumb drives up here. If you raise your hand, I will throw them to you. And you can just install it straight on, or you can grab it directly off of GitHub. Down and back. Yeah, that'd be great. So if you go up here to GitHub /approval/approvaltest.java.koans and just hit the download zip, you can grab it that way as well. All right. A couple other little things to point out. There are little things pointed out around the thing, just asking different kinds of questions. If you find your eyes wandering around the room and you fall on it, just ask yourself the question. It can just help do it. The reason, I should explain this before we start. So, for skill in learning, there are 2 sort of sides that make it work. One is having experiences. I think of having experiences as like fuel, like gas in your car. If you do not have any experiences, it's just hard to go anywhere. You need some experiences. But just like fuel in your car, having a lot of fuel in your car doesn't get you anywhere in and of itself. You still need to drive. You need to burn that fuel. That is the retrospective. That's looking back at your experience, mining it for data. If you just keep doing stuff and never look back and think about what you're doing, that fuel is useless. It doesn't help you. If you just think about stuff but never actually get any real experience, you're running on empty. Those thoughts become useless. You need to do stuff, and then you need to reflect on what you did. That's where the real learning occurs. So you're going to see us sandwich that in here. What's your name?
Becky.
Vahid? Vahid is going to be our first driver. So the way this is going to work is the person at the keyboard has a lot to do just in typing. So in respect of that, we're not going to make them do any other thinking. All you have to do is be a smart input device. It's like a glorified typist. Stand up, Jim. Introduce yourself.
I'm Jim.
Very succinct.
T3 words.
So,
Write that on the sticky note.
Jim is going to be our first navigator. He's going to tell Vahid what to do, and he's responsible for all the thinking. But he doesn't have to do it alone. All of you guys are allowed to help. But in the end, Jim is responsible. All right, Jim, we are going to do a Koans. Can you guys see the wall okay? Is it better with less light?
Less light.
Is that, which one of those is better? All off or partly off?
All off.
All right, that good? Okay, so Jim, I'm gonna have you stand up. So the reason I'm having Jim stand up is one of the advantages of this format is that his thought process gets broadcast to the driver, but it also gets broadcast to the rest of the group. If he doesn't stand up, there just seems to be a correlation that he talks quieter. I don't know what that is, but it makes it harder for the rest of us to hear. All right, so you're going to be tasked with the first question.
First question.
So start with reading out the comments.
How to do Koans. Step 1, press the run button. Place cursor on the method name to run a single method.
So what do you need to do?
Just go all through them? Or
I'm just going to have you do one.
okay, step 1, place the run button. Place cursor on the method name. So put the cursor on getting started down there. Oh wait, that's the class name. No, put the cursor on normal J unit test asserts.
Oh, I'm sorry, would you like a mouse?
And then, is this a Mac? So
Actually, it's a PC.
that's a PC. Okay.
Are you sure?
Is this a trick question?
I am sure.
Yeah, you're in a Windows environment. You can tell by the little start button down there.
Okay, so I'm gonna say.
Wow.
I'm gonna say. Okay, so it looks like you're on there. So press Control F11. Okay, we have a red bar. Step 2, read the name of the method that failed. Normal J unit asserts. Step 3, fill in the blank to make it pass. So,
Can you guys see the text okay, or is it blurry for you?
I can see it.
Oh, cool.
So we have to fill in that blank. So go down to where that blank line is, right under your cursor, or right.
Line 35.
Line 35.
Okay.
Let's replace that with quote small string, just like it says there. Small string. Just repeat what it previous string. Okay, now hit. Now go and highlight the method name again, and hit Control F11.
All right.
Sweet. You get paid
So,
now?
first question down there. Pull out your sticky notes. Write down something you observed. Doesn't have to be big. It can be obvious. Keep in mind, if you had written down there was a gorilla, half of the people would be like, really, where? So just because it's obvious to you in no way means that it was obvious to everyone else, and in no way means it's unimportant. Anything you observed. All right, and pass them on up.
Sorry, it's not in capitals.
Done.
I failed.
You too?
Yeah, I got a handicap, so.
I think I failed that, and I think I did 4 words. Yeah.
So let's take a quick look at what we got out of this. Wrong is not a problem.
That's why we're here.
Okay, this is kind of repetitive. The comments got formatted. That's totally interesting. Who said this? Nice. Do you know why they got formatted?
I don't know, but they're unformatted now.
I was manually fixing some of it.
Format on stage. Yeah. Text reformatted. Oh, nice. Quite a few people. The test failed. Nice. We start with a failing test. Change was obvious. Only one test ran. Why did only one test run? Say it again.
Question.
Why did only one test
We
run?
only ran one test.
But why did you only run one? How did you only run one test?
Well, it's the, I assume it's a function of the control F11.
It's because the mouse got the cursor on the method name.
Yeah.
Question. Where is the underscore defined?
That's interesting.
Eclipse autosave file upon rerunning the test. There is a Koans superclass. Control F11 will run. The Heed is awesome at typing. There's a circle on the screen. Oh, nice observation. So the circle, move the mouse just for a second. No, sir. So the circle is a mouse pointer that, if you haven't moved the mouse for, I think, 5 minutes or so, puts a little halo around it to make it easy to detect. Very helpful if you have a lot of pixels and you're like, where's my mouse? Reformatted the comments. Okay, so for the 4 people, I'm going to have you stand up, rotate. Jim, you're going to become the typer. Paul, you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry. This one? I'm
It's like
Paul.
there's a gorilla.
So yeah, go counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise.
Alright, so this way.
Yes.
Alright,
Yeah.
okay, so I go here.
All right, Paul,
Yes.
stand up. You're up
Oh,
next.
yeah. I'm Paul. Next. Did it change?
Nope, this one's passing. We're going to go to the next one.
Next one. So, all right. Please double click on line 38 method names. Thank you. Please click the control reformat the text. Okay, fill in the blank to make it pass. So let's see, assert equals expected text. Sure. Is that what it's expecting? So let's type in text.
Are we allowed to participate? Or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The test says there's cert against.
Sort against.
Is it a negative test?
Verify content says equal.
So maybe they must be equal, but not in
tip for Eclipse is you can double click that line.
Small string actual expected text.
Oh. So you have to assert that the contents of expected.text is a string. That
Or
is.
small string.
Oh, okay, yeah. So.
Small string.
So.
Okay.
Basically.
Small string should be. Right. Was it all?
It's just a line of-
That's
Yeah, it contains a line of small string.
Very good. Thank you.
Nice. Run me up your observations.
Let's see. Thank you.
So that'll be a hard observation to write up.
I can write what you described.
No,
verify
that's my
contents is
observation.
equal to
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not grammatically correct.
All right. Against could be clearer if removed.
Assert file contents.
Assert file contents. Nice.
I can
Skipped the reading of the method name. It's true. The method name could make it easier to do the question. Why small string? That's a really good question. Why, so I wrote these, so I can actually answer this. Why did I choose to say small string again? What does that do?
Shows that that's a value.
Shows a value, but I could have used any value. Why did I choose to keep it the same right now? Continuity. And what does continuity do?
Makes you remember.
It does make you remember. It also highlights differences. When things are similar but not quite the same, the differences show greater. Keeps formatting comments. Eventually they'll be down to one line. The objects in the failure trace panel give helpful explanations when double-clicked. Still more reformatting. The method has a confusing name with the against. Received in Eclipse flip. What does it mean?
Tip.
Tip. Oh, Eclipse tip. Yes. Yes, the double clicking. Verify contents is equal is not intuitive. Group work is fun. This is true in general. It's extra true when you're learning. There's a lot of really interesting research on learning in groups versus learning individually. Specifically by a guy who did these studies in India, where he basically just cut a hole in his wall and stuck a computer out facing a slum. And if you look at it, if you do a Google for hole in the wall, really interesting research being done by him. Non-intuitive way to get the answer. Double click the first line. Second argument in method was a surprise. Second argument is the actual value we expect in the file. The context is missing. All right, rotate. Introduce yourself.
I'm Asaf. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Asaf.
We met before. Okay, please place the cursor on the using automatic file names method and press Control F11.
Up at the top.
Yeah, okay. It's tiny.
Oh, we have the failing test.
Dun, dun, dun.
Please click on that first line of that stack trace. Prefer convention over configuration. Can you expand that window, turn it to the bottom corner? Okay. Prefer convention over configuration is the expected. What we actually got, please fill in the blank. So press, oh yeah, please, that's a good idea. I like that. Please press OK. Let's try, let's see, file assert verify context is cool. Let's try replacing the blank with the string that is in your copy paste buffer. And let's try to run the test. See if it passes. It does pass.
Nice. Now, before I ask for observations, Asaf, I'm gonna ask just one more question. What does there's 2 lines of code here. What do they do?
Well, in the first line, we're using a factory method to create an instance of an approval neighbor. And then we are getting the name, the approval name property from that namer, appending .text to it. And then we're asserting that the contents of that dynamically created file name is the string for convention over configuration.
Good. All right. Observations. Run down.
I don't need to. No, no.
All right. All right. Approvals. Create approval file name creates a file. Create approval file name creates a file. Is that true, by the way?
No.
No. What does it do?
It creates an approval namer.
Yeah, it creates the name. It doesn't actually create the file. Changing the method name would make the test fail. Interesting. Is that true?
No.
I don't think so. We can check.
We could check. How could you change this example to explore some more? How would we test this?
I added 2 to the end of the method.
For real? A numeric value and a method name?
Why not? Just an
Just
experiment.
What happens when you run it out? Okay, so first of all, it does fail. How does it fail? does it say?
Double click that.
Double clicking it will not help, unfortunately, because it's not a string comparison, and whoever made the JUnit runner was considerate only halfway.
I can't read that.
But can you read it, Paul? Because you have it in front of you.
Runtime exception could not find get starting something automatic filing to .text.
So,
it is using the
does
method
change
name.
it, does use the method name. F3 can help. What is F3? Well, does anyone know what F3 does? So F3 is a navigation. It's the same as control clicking. It'll take you to the definition.
This guy?
So I assume the person who's saying it was saying, click on the one underneath.
On the method.
The method, yeah. You have to get out of here. Click on this, verify is equal. If you click that and then hit F3, it will take you to where it is defined.
Create a purple.
So you can actually see what the method is doing. A little bit of stack trace and reflection to pull from stack trace, or class pattern. There's a design pattern used. Right now, what is our pattern?
Factory.
Factory for convention over configuration.
And prefer convention over configuration, yes. Does everyone understand what that means? No? Alright, we'll get to it. Same solution approach. What is the solution approach we're using right now?
Look at the debugger.
Look at the debugger. A useful approach. Approval name, Machiavellian. No, wait.
It says approval name of Malkovich.
Malkovich.
Come on.
What does Malkovich mean?
It's my reference to the movie Being John Malkovich, where the word Malkovich just appears again and again. This method consists entirely of the word approval and namer repeated in various forms.
Ah, good. Why so much repetition of approval and namer?
Because it's Java. Everything is a noun verb.
The test pass. We didn't learn the name of the file. Nice observation.
Until later,
Until now, yeah. So what's the name of the file now?
whatever it said.
We'll use automatic file names.txt.
Reading the whole method helps. Interesting observation. Cut and paste is effective. This is so true. Beyond question. That is most of my role as a programmer. Role of the approval namer is unclear. We can make tests pass before we understand why.
That's how we've gotten this far.
This is a beautiful thing, by the way. I will say, if you are thinking about doing more TDD, using unit testing stronger, that is a beautiful thing, right? That I can fix my code without purely understanding it. In a lot of the code bases I have worked with is not just beautiful, but essential. Right? Like, I've been in numerous things where if I had to understand all the code before I could change it, I would never be able to change anything. Approval namer has a constant name. Yes. Meaning every time you run it, it gives you the same thing. Where did the actual default value for underscore come from? How would you find that out? F3. Try it out. Yeah, scroll down a little bit. Rotate.
I didn't know you could do that. I'm not sure I want anyone to know you could do that.
So we'll talk about the uses of pure underscore variables later. There are some useful ones, but as a general thing, I'm doing an abomination right now. All right, introduce yourself again.
Okay, my name is Vahid.
All right, but now tell us like where you work or something you do.
Oh, well, I work with this guy who commented on my typing skills. His name is James.
It's not bad. Talk about yourself. Leave me alone.
I work at
So
Accelerus.
modest.
Accelerus creates a lot of wide range of products for the scientific community.
Cool. Take us to the next one.
Yes, I will. Oh, James is going to present at this meeting in a couple of months. So you definitely have to come because James is a great speaker and he has a lot of cool jokes. Just come for the jokes.
Worst presentation ever.
Okay. So I think we should highlight the method name on line 46 and hit Control F11. Right, so I can't really see that far to the left. Is the method failing name the one that you've highlighted? Yes, automatically generated names. I assume that's probably what you highlighted. Might as well copy that up. And then we can interpret what the test is trying to do. So automatically generate names is the method name that failed. And so we got this approval namer guy, and we just want to verify his name, which is the method name now, right? So you can just slap that thing into the underscore in the string.
This name?
Yep. Yeah, sorry. Start again.
It pretends the name of the class.
Oh, it doesn't now. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, it's kind of giving me the expected answer the whole time, isn't it?
So again, just tell me what these 2 lines of code do.
Well, the first line is the same as last time. We're creating an instance of this approval namer. And the second one is just supposed to be a string compare. And it's just to my surprise, in this case, line 48 versus the line 41, when we call get approval name, the name is prefixed with the class name. Probably just based on context now. So we're comparing 2 strings.
Cool. All right, observations. All right, what do we got? Any more? Missed one from last time, so I'm going to start with that one. Rely on the failure trace item to know what string was expected. Nice observation. A lot of times, failure helps us by letting us know what success looks like. Get approval name is generated by the concatenation of class name and the method. Familiar method reuse makes test procedure predictable. The get approval name method returns a string that is class name.method name. Multiple tests of get approval name help us learn what it does. Nice. Class in the default package. Is the class in the default package? Scroll up. to the top.
Can you turn off the zoom in mode that he's got on?
Click on this thing down here. Oh no, up. Yeah, there it is. Magnifier. Scroll down a little bit. You're zooming, or now you hit the X. There.
I tried to make the font better, that's not gonna help.
I'll stop driving soon.
Yeah, because the font is weird, right?
Yeah.
It's just really clean. Let's see if I can fix it.
I'm a Mac guy, I pressed Apple Plus. Total fail.
Did more than I would have expected it would.
How's that? Better? I think we were pushing the thing harder than it could, harder than it should be. All right. Pop-ups, no matter how helpful, can be bothersome. I feel compelled to speak. No problem with that, by the way. Speak away. What can approval namer not do? You can do it all. The class name was unexpected. Oh, sorry, scroll to the top. Someone said it's in the default package. I just want to confirm that. Is it in the default package? Still same solution approach. Meaning we are still finding the error, replacing it. Delta string for solution. Oh yeah, because we only got half of the solution right the first time. Delta is really useful. Not much documentation for tests. In fact, no documentation for tests. All right, we have a whole bunch of different things to look at, but let's take like a 5-minute break. We're sort of coming up to the hour. Go to the bathroom. There's keys in the back if you need to grab them. Get some more to drink.
Hot wings.
Hot wings and pizza and cinnamon stick things with frosting.
And there's a little microwave in the back if you want to heat anything up.